The year was 2143, and humanity, despite its advancements, was still teetering on the brink of the unknown. Earth had endured centuries of strife, war, and social division, yet the same relentless drive that had helped humans survive the darkest moments of their history continued to push them forward. It was this drive that led to their first genuine encounter with the stars. It had all started with the discovery of the mysterious artifact, buried deep within the craters of the moon. A consortium of Earth's brightest minds had been assembled to decode the relic, which seemed to be of extraterrestrial origin. The message embedded within it was clear: prepare for the journey. In an unexpected twist, the humans soon discovered that the artifact wasn't just a message, it was a key that unlocked an ancient and powerful technology far beyond anything Earth had ever known. The technology, however, was dormant, and its secrets required more than just knowledge to unlock. It demanded humanity's full capacity for resilience, adaptability, and, most importantly, its hunger to prove itself on a galactic scale. Despite their primitive beginnings, Earth's representatives, scientists, engineers, and military strategists, came together to form the Interstellar Initiative. Their first step was to reverse engineer the technology, not knowing that they were standing on the precipice of the most profound leap in their civilization's history. Yet, the galaxy was vast, and its inhabitants were many, and not all of them were kind. The artifact had stirred the interest of an array of alien species, some curious, others hostile. These advanced beings had long considered Earth to be nothing more than an insignificant speck, unworthy of their attention. The idea that a species as primitive as humanity might one day challenge their dominance was laughable, until the artifact's full potential was revealed. Dr. Emma Rook, one of the lead scientists in the project, was among the first to understand the gravity of what the technology could mean for humankind. She realized that it wasn't just about travel to distant stars or harnessing new forms of energy, it was about the survival of humanity itself. The galaxy was a place of deep, unyielding power, and there was no guarantee that Earth would be allowed to exist on its own terms. Even worse, some factions already saw humanity's potential rise as a threat to the established order. But Rook refused to let fear dictate their future. Humanity had always been underestimated, and she knew this was a moment that could prove Earth's worth on a cosmic scale. She and her team worked tirelessly, unlocking piece by piece the mysteries within the ancient device. But with each step forward, they were increasingly aware of the shifting political tides on Earth and beyond. Some factions sought to control the technology for their own ends, while others wanted to keep it hidden, fearing the chaos it could unleash. The breakthrough came sooner than expected. After a decade of research, the Interstellar Initiative activated the core system of the ancient artifact. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. Suddenly, vast star maps, precise stellar coordinates, and even blueprints for new propulsion technologies flooded the minds of Earth's scientists. The entire human race was thrust into an era of space exploration far earlier than any had predicted. The potential for this newfound knowledge was staggering. Humanity could now build faster-than-light ships, harness limitless energy sources, and explore the furthest reaches of space. Yet, as the first human-built starship left Earth's orbit, it wasn't just an expedition into the stars, it was a challenge. A challenge to all those who had underestimated Earth's inhabitants. Word of the ship's departure spread quickly across the galaxy. Some saw it as a sign of hope, an opportunity to make contact with a species who had, until then, been isolated in their own corner of the universe. But others, especially those with darker intentions, viewed it as a declaration of war. The primitive humans had just taken their first step into the cosmos, and already, their impact was being felt. Earth was no longer just a minor planet. It was a beacon of possibility. Yet, that beacon would draw enemies, and humanity would soon find that survival in the vastness of space was far more dangerous than they had imagined. Now, humanity's greatest challenge had begun, its struggle for survival against alien forces who would stop at nothing to prevent their rise. And it would be in the face of these overwhelming odds that humanity would have to prove the one thing that had always set it apart, its unyielding will to survive, and its determination to conquer the stars. As the first human-built starship, Endurance, hurtled through the stars, it became clear that humanity's emergence into the galactic community wouldn't be as peaceful as they had hoped. The Endurance had been designed to be humanity's symbol of potential, its flagship, a shining testament to the brilliance and determination of Earth's finest minds. But it wasn't long before it encountered its first challenge, an alien warship from the Karnak Dominion. The Karnak were a ruthless, ancient race known for their militaristic culture and their long-standing dominance of the sector. They had kept an eye on Earth for centuries, aware of its existence but dismissive of its potential. However, the sudden appearance of Endurance, equipped with technologies the Karnak had never seen, sent ripples through their empire. What was once an insignificant planet now held the power to upset the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. The first encounter was both a test and a warning. The Karnak warship, Valkarath, hailed Endurance with an ominous message, demanding that the humans immediately return to their home planet and never again venture beyond their solar system. The humans, now emboldened by the advancements they had unlocked, refused. They knew this was a pivotal moment. They couldn't afford to show fear or weakness. Captain Michael Darrow, the commander of Endurance, faced the alien vessel from the bridge of his ship. A seasoned military officer, Darrow was familiar with the nature of threats. But the Karnak were different, cold, calculating, and brutal. The Karnak captain's voice echoed through the comms, mocking the humans for daring to challenge them, warning that the full might of the Dominion would come down upon them. But Darrow had something the Karnak didn't: humanity's unyielding spirit. He understood that Earth's survival would depend not just on technology, but on their will to fight against the impossible. As the Karnak warship powered its weapons and moved into firing position, Darrow made the decision that would set the tone for humanity's future in the stars. He ordered the Endurance to engage. The ensuing battle was a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. Although the Endurance was technologically superior in certain aspects, it was no match for the sheer firepower and tactical prowess of the Karnak. However, humans fought with a passion that the Karnak had never anticipated. The Endurance zigged and zagged through the cosmic battlefield, evading devastating blasts and retaliating with precise strikes aimed at weak points on the alien vessel's hull. The alien ship was formidable, but it had underestimated the humans' adaptability. The engagement, though intense, ended in a narrow escape for Endurance. The Karnak, recognizing that pursuing a losing battle wasn't in their best interest, chose to retreat, vowing that this would not be the last time they encountered the humans. But Captain Darrow and his crew knew they had won something far more important than a mere skirmish: they had proven humanity's resolve. Yet, the consequences were far-reaching. The Karnak Dominion had seen Earth's potential, and they now considered it a direct threat to their empire. Behind the scenes, the Dominion's ruling council began to strategize, preparing to wage war on the humans before they could grow stronger. On Earth, the news of the battle spread quickly. The world's leaders, once divided by political and ideological differences, were now united in a singular cause: humanity's survival among the stars. The interstellar initiative was no longer just a scientific endeavor, it had become a military one. Resources were funneled into the development of new ships, weapons, and defenses, while Earth's first-ever interstellar military force, the United Earth Fleet, UEF, was born. But the Karnak were not the only ones watching. Other factions, some curious and others eager to test humanity's resilience, took notice of the events unfolding. While some would try to ally with Earth in the hopes of benefiting from its rise, others saw this as an opportunity to take control of the fledgling species before it became too powerful. And in the shadows, even more dangerous forces lurked, biding their time. Humanity had taken its first step into the galaxy, and already, it was at war. It wasn't just the technology that made them formidable, it was their refusal to give up, their desire to push forward against all odds. But this was only the beginning. What they would face next would test not only their will to survive, but their ability to unite and fight for their place in the stars. The battle for humanity's future had only just begun, and the stakes had never been higher. After the first major skirmish with the Karnak, Earth's leaders realized that their journey into the stars was not merely an exploration of space, it was the beginning of a new, more dangerous era. The Karnak were the first to make their move, but they were far from the only power in the galaxy with an eye on humanity. In the wake of Endurance's near defeat, the human race had to quickly adapt to the harsh reality of intergalactic politics and warfare. The fight for survival had only just begun. Back on Earth, there was a growing sense of urgency. The United Earth Fleet, UEF, had been established in response to the Karnak threat, but it was a fledgling force. Humanity's shipbuilding capabilities, though advanced, still lagged behind the military might of galactic powers that had been waging war for millennia. The early days of the fleet were marked by rapid experimentation, trial and error, and intense training. Captains like Michael Darrow and his crew aboard Endurance were now regarded as veterans in a war that had just begun. But they knew that Earth's enemies would not wait for them to catch up. Meanwhile, the Karnak Dominion, though temporarily repelled, had returned to their homeworld to rally their forces. They were not a race known for mercy, and their pride had been deeply wounded by the humans' unexpected resistance. In their eyes, humanity's rise was a direct challenge to their centuries-old rule. They could not afford to let Earth thrive. In secret, they began assembling a vast armada, one that would dwarf the first human response fleet. The Karnak were not acting alone. The news of Earth's emergence had spread through the galaxy like wildfire, drawing the attention of other alien races. Some were intrigued by humanity's sudden leap into the cosmic stage, and saw potential for alliances, while others feared the rise of a new power in their midst. The Zorii, a race of cold, calculating traders, saw an opportunity. They were neutral by nature, existing to expand their economic influence and broker power between warring factions. They offered humanity access to their extensive trade routes and technology, at a price. The Zorii were always looking for ways to tip the balance of power in their favor, and they were well aware that an alliance with humanity could help them consolidate their hold over key sectors of the galaxy. Yet, not all of Earth's potential allies came with good intentions. The Ryav, a race of highly advanced beings known for their psychic abilities, watched humanity's rapid development with suspicion. They were masters of influence, and their telepathic powers had given them the ability to manipulate entire populations across vast stretches of the galaxy. The Ryav did not trust humanity's sudden rise. They saw the human willpower, the very thing that had enabled them to unlock the ancient artifact, as a potential threat to their centuries-old dominance of psychic manipulation. Though the Ryav had kept to themselves for eons, they now began to wonder if humanity might one day become a powerful force in the galaxy, a force that could rival their own. Among all these threats and opportunities, one truth was clear: Earth's rapid rise had thrown the galaxy into a state of upheaval. The balance of power had been shaken, and now all eyes were on humanity. On Earth, the leaders of the Interstellar Initiative convened to discuss their next move. Dr. Emma Rook, who had once been the lead scientist behind the discovery of the artifact, was now acting as the chief diplomatic envoy to the various galactic factions. She was tasked with securing alliances that could help humanity stave off the growing threat of the Karnak and other enemies. But Rook was a realist. She knew that the galaxy's established powers would not simply offer help out of goodwill. They would demand something in return, and they would want to test humanity's resolve. Captain Darrow, now a seasoned leader, was thrust into a different role as the commander of a new fleet of human warships. Endurance had become a symbol, and he had to balance the responsibility of leadership with the need to prepare humanity for the inevitable war that was coming. The Karnak were not the only threat. Others were watching, waiting for humanity to make a misstep. The battle for Earth's place in the stars was far from over, and the humans were about to face the full force of a galaxy that had long considered them insignificant. But humanity had one advantage that no other species could understand: an unyielding will to survive, to push forward even when the odds seemed impossible. As the storm clouds gathered and the first signs of war flickered in the distance, Earth's defenders readied themselves for the battles ahead. The universe was vast, and its dangers were many. But Earth had already proven it could stand its ground, and now, humanity had no choice but to rise up and meet the gathering storm head-on. The war had begun in earnest. The Karnak, humiliated by the humans' defiance, launched their full-scale assault on Earth's fledgling interstellar fleet. Their vast armada, a terrifying display of advanced weaponry and tactical brilliance, surged toward humanity's homeworld, eager to crush the upstart species before it could fully establish itself as a galactic power. The Karnak had underestimated humanity's resolve once, but they would not make the same mistake again. In the deep reaches of space, the United Earth Fleet, UEF, braced for the inevitable. The fleet was still in its infancy, composed of hastily assembled ships that had been cobbled together from the remains of Earth's most advanced vessels, with some built from the blueprints contained in the artifact. While they had proven their mettle in small skirmishes, nothing had prepared them for the full might of the Karnak war machine. On Earth, the government and military leaders met in urgent council. Dr. Emma Rook, now the liaison between Earth and its potential allies, urged caution. The Karnak may not be the only threat, she said. Other factions will move against us, and if we aren't careful, we'll be overwhelmed on all fronts. Captain Michael Darrow, standing at the forefront of the military strategy meetings, was less concerned with the politics of the galaxy than with the immediate threat facing Earth. We've seen the Karnaka's tactics, their ships. They'll come in waves, overwhelming our defenses with their sheer size. We can't afford to be reactive. We need to strike first. The humans' first test would come in the form of the Karnak flagship, Valkarath. This massive warship was the pride of their fleet, a floating fortress bristling with devastating weapons. It had been the ship that had led the first encounter with Endurance, and now it would spearhead the assault on Earth. It was here that Darrow made his bold decision, to confront the Karnak head-on. The United Earth Fleet, although outnumbered, had one crucial advantage, the element of surprise. While the Karnak were expecting an all-out assault from Earth's fleet, humanity had developed a new type of warship, one that would give them a chance to turn the tide. The ships were smaller, faster, and equipped with experimental cloaking technology that could render them invisible to enemy radar for brief periods of time. It was a long shot, but it was their best chance to fight back. The battle unfolded just outside the orbit of Mars, where Earth's forces intercepted the incoming Karnak fleet. The Endurance and several newly commissioned ships moved to the front lines, cloaking themselves as they drew closer to the Karnak armada. Darrow knew that the key to success was striking fast and retreating before the Karnak could regroup. They couldn't afford to engage in prolonged combat, the enemy's fleet was simply too vast. The opening salvo was like a thunderclap in the vacuum of space. The cloaked ships emerged from their stealth, unleashing a torrent of high-powered plasma bursts and antimatter missiles directly at Valkarath. The Karnak flagship reeled from the initial strike, its shields buckling under the force of humanity's attack. For a moment, it seemed as though the battle might turn in humanity's favor. But the Karnak were relentless. As the Endurance darted in and out of the fray, dealing blow after blow to the Valkarath, the rest of the Karnak fleet began to mobilize. Their ships, larger and more heavily armed, began to advance on the human positions. The first wave of human ships was overwhelmed, but the Karnak had taken significant damage to their flagship and their morale faltered for a moment. Darrow knew that time was running out. He ordered a full retreat, recognizing that the cloaking technology had only bought them so much time. With Valkarath heavily damaged but still operational, it was clear that this first strike had not been enough to secure victory. Earth's forces began pulling back, with Endurance leading the retreat to a nearby asteroid belt. The humans had struck a blow, but it was a costly one. The Karnak, though wounded, were not finished. They would regroup, and they would come back stronger. Earth's fleet was far from ready for the kind of sustained conflict that lay ahead. The Karnak were a race of conquerors, and they would not simply give up their claim to dominance. On Earth, the mood was grim. The public was still riding the high of the Endurance's bold strike, but those in power understood the magnitude of the situation. The Karnak were only the first of many who would seek to test humanity's will. As the fleet retreated into the outer solar system, humanity found itself caught in a deadly dance, a fight for survival in the cold vacuum of space. As the Karnak armada began to regroup and chase down the fleeing humans, the political landscape on Earth began to shift once more. Some factions began to question whether humanity had the strength to face the oncoming storm. Would they be able to unite and find the strength to continue fighting, or would they crumble under the weight of galactic opposition? The war was only beginning. The first strike had been humanity's, but now the Karnak were determined to return it tenfold. And soon, humanity would have to face the consequences of its defiance, and the question of whether they could hold their ground in the face of an empire that would not be denied. The Karnak were relentless. After the battle at Mars, their forces regrouped and began a calculated advance toward Earth. The humans had won a victory of sorts, striking fear into their enemies, but that victory had come at a great cost. The Karnak were a proud and tenacious species, and they had no intention of letting a primitive race like humanity rise to power without a brutal reckoning. Earth was now under siege. The first signs of the Karnak fleet's approach came as a dark shadow across the sky. Their ships, massive and menacing, emerged from the depths of space in a formation that stretched for light years. They were no longer simply conducting raids, they were laying siege to the planet itself. The sheer scale of their invasion was overwhelming, and humanity's defenders were left with little time to prepare. On Earth, panic began to spread. Governments went into full wartime mode, mobilizing civilian populations and establishing emergency protocols. The United Earth Fleet, though now more experienced after their previous battles, was still no match for the overwhelming might of the Karnak. The human fleet was scattered across the solar system, and Earth's planetary defenses were barely holding strong against the alien onslaught. Captain Michael Darrow, now a war hero but also a symbol of humanity's indomitable will, stood at the head of the fleet's command. His crew aboard Endurance had become veterans in their own right, and now, they were faced with the most difficult challenge of their careers: defend Earth from total annihilation. "We need to hold them back, long enough for reinforcements to arrive from the outer colonies," Darrow said to his crew, his voice steady despite the looming threat. "If we can create a defensive line and slow them down, we might just have a shot at survival." But it wasn't just the Karnak that humanity had to worry about. The alien armada was vast, and scattered among it were ships from other factions, many of whom had aligned themselves with the Karnak in exchange for their own gain. The Ryev, whose psychic abilities had already put them on edge regarding humanity's potential, were rumored to be working behind the scenes, feeding information to the Karnak about humanity's weaknesses. The Zorii, ever the opportunists, had positioned their trade ships around the perimeter of the conflict, waiting for the moment to strike a deal with whichever side would emerge victorious. But even amidst this growing chaos, a glimmer of hope remained. Humanity's greatest strength was its unity in the face of adversity. While the military scrambled to hold the front lines, diplomats like Dr. Emma Rook were working tirelessly to secure alliances with the few sympathetic factions that existed in the galaxy. It was during this time that the Relon, a technologically advanced but isolationist species from the nearby Alpha Centauri system, made an unexpected move. They had been monitoring Earth's progress, intrigued by the species' defiance against the Karnak. Though the Relon had little interest in direct conflict, they had watched the rise of humanity with cautious optimism. Perhaps, they believed, Earth could be the disruptor they had longed for. The Relon offered humanity a potential lifeline, advanced weapons technology and an alliance in exchange for a seat at the table in galactic affairs. Dr. Rook and Captain Darrow debated the offer. Could humanity trust the Relon, or was this just another calculated power play in a galaxy full of hidden agendas? As the Karnak tightened their grip on Earth, it became clear that humanity could not rely solely on external alliances. Earth citizens had to rise to the occasion. Despite the overwhelming odds, the human spirit, fueled by the same drive that had led them to space in the first place, refused to bend. From the outer colonies to the inner systems, resistance cells began to organize, striking back at Karnak supply lines and offering aid to the human fleet. In a surprising move, the UEF deployed an untested strategy, a coordinated strike to hit the heart of the Karnak fleet in the outer reaches of the system, hoping to disrupt their command structure. Endurance was chosen for the mission, its stealth technology and swift maneuvering providing the perfect opportunity for a surgical strike. Darrow led his crew in a desperate gamble to destroy the Karnaka's flagship once again, this time aiming directly at its central command center. The mission was a near-suicide operation. The Karnak had learned from the last battle and were prepared. Their fleet was positioned in a deadly formation, with the Valkyrath leading the charge. Darrow and his crew navigated through the heart of the enemy fleet, using their cloaking devices to slip past countless Karnak warships. But the Valkyrath was a fortress, its shields nearly impenetrable. For hours, Endurance danced around the Karnak ships, evading capture and striking with pinpoint accuracy at their fleet's key nodes. Every strike was a risk, every moment of stealth was a prayer for survival. But the human crew, led by Darrow's steady hand, pushed on. As the Endurance approached the Valkyrath, a final, daring move was made. The ship's cloaking system was disabled, and a direct assault was launched on the Karnak flagship's command bridge. The battle was fierce, and despite taking heavy damage, Endurance succeeded in sending a crippling blow to the heart of the Karnak fleet. The Valkyrath's leadership was decimated, and the Karnak forces were thrown into disarray. It wasn't a victory, at least, not yet, but it was a turning point. The Karnak were no longer invincible. Humanity had struck at their core, and the galaxy had taken notice. The siege of Earth was far from over, but the tide had shifted. Humanity had proven it could stand its ground, and now, the question remained, would they have enough time to unite the galaxy's forces and build the strength necessary to defeat the Karnak once and for all? The next chapter in their struggle had just begun. The Karnak had been stunned by the loss of their flagship Valkyrath, a blow that sent ripples through their vast empire. The humans had managed to strike a pivotal blow, but Earth was still under siege, and the road to victory was far from certain. The Karnak were regrouping, but the damage done to their command structure and morale would take time to mend. For the first time, humanity's defiance had left a permanent scar on the Karnaka's reputation. On Earth, the humans were regrouping, too. The battle had not been won, but the tide had shifted. The UEF had suffered heavy losses, and Earth's planetary defenses were beginning to crumble under the relentless pressure of the Karnaka's siege. The question on everyone's mind was no longer if Earth could survive, but how much longer it could last. But in the midst of this uncertainty, new opportunities arose. Dr. Emma Rook's diplomatic efforts had gained traction. After humanity's bold strike against the Karnak, several factions, previously hesitant or neutral, began to see humanity's potential as a key player in the galaxy. The Relon, whose earlier offer of an alliance still hung in the balance, moved forward with negotiations. Their technology, though more advanced than anything humanity had, was not without its own complications. The Relon were notorious for their secrecy, and their true motivations remained unclear. But the humans were desperate. If the Relon's offer could help turn the tide, they would take the risk. Rook, with the backing of Earth's highest officials, traveled to the Relon homeworld under tight security. Her mission was clear: secure the alliance, solidify humanity's place in the galactic community, and buy time for Earth to recover. However, the Relon were not inclined to take sides in a war, especially not one involving the brutal Karnak. They wanted something more. They wanted to test humanity's resolve, not just as a species of explorers, but as a race capable of challenging the ancient powers of the galaxy. The Karnak are not the only threat to this galaxy, a Relon emissary explained during the tense negotiations. There are other forces that will rise once the Karnak fall, and they will be more dangerous than you can imagine. What we need is not just a warrior, but an ally who understands the true balance of power. Will humanity be that ally, or will it be consumed by the chaos of this war? Rook's mind raced as she considered the Relon's words. Earth was in danger of being annihilated, and yet, this was a chance to secure a powerful ally, a chance to join the ranks of those who could influence the course of galactic history. But the Relon were not just offering military support, they were seeking something deeper. They wanted to know if humanity could withstand the brutal pressures of galactic politics, of constant war, and of the scheming factions that controlled the galaxy's fate. In the meantime, on the front lines, Captain Darrow and the UEF had been forced to adapt to the relentless Karnak assault. Their ships had undergone countless repairs, and the crews had been stretched to their breaking points. Endurance, despite its many battles, remained a beacon of human resilience, but it was no longer the sole symbol of humanity's strength. New ships, built from the scraps of the old fleet, were starting to enter service. The UEF was learning fast, adapting tactics and technology on the fly. But the Karnak were also learning from their previous defeats, and they were evolving to counter the human strategies. The human resistance on Earth had been bolstered by the arrival of small but determined fleets from Earth's outer colonies. These fleets, though lacking the power of the Karnak, were seasoned fighters. The colonies had long faced threats from pirates, hostile alien species, and natural disasters. They were survivors, and now, they would stand alongside Earth in this fight. But humanity was also facing growing internal divisions. Some factions, particularly those influenced by the Zorii traders, argued that Earth's best course of action was to negotiate a peace treaty with the Karnak and secure trade deals with the galaxy's more neutral powers. Others, like Darrow and his most loyal officers, were adamant that Earth could not afford to back down. The Karnak would not stop until they had either wiped humanity out or forced them to submit. The time for diplomacy was over. It was now a war for survival. As the humans struggled to hold their ground, something unexpected occurred. The Karnak, realizing they could not achieve a swift victory, began to retreat. Slowly, strategically, they pulled their forces back from Earth's atmosphere. Their withdrawal was not a surrender, it was a tactical move. The Karnak needed time to rebuild their forces and reassert their dominance in the galaxy. They had suffered too many losses, and the cost of continuing the siege was too high. The retreat was temporary, but it gave humanity precious time. The UEF's fleets, though battered, had proven that they could inflict significant damage on the Karnak. And now, with the backing of new allies like the Relon, and perhaps even the Zorii, humanity could begin to plan its next move. In the quiet aftermath of the Karnaka's retreat, Earth began to rebuild. Humanity had learned a hard lesson: their survival depended not just on technology or military might, but on the ability to forge alliances, to play the game of galactic politics, and to survive in a universe full of shifting allegiances and dangerous enemies. But the Karnak were not the only force to be reckoned with. A new threat loomed on the horizon, one that would soon force humanity to confront its greatest challenge yet. The galaxy was far from stable, and if Earth was to stand a chance in the long term, it would have to navigate the treacherous waters of intergalactic diplomacy and warfare. The true test was only just beginning. The galaxy had watched Earth's rise, and now the galaxy was watching its next move. Would humanity emerge as a true power, or would it be consumed by the forces that sought to manipulate and destroy it? The answers lay in the future, and humanity had to decide whether it was ready to face the storm ahead. The Karnaka's temporary retreat had given humanity a moment of respite, but it was clear that this war was far from over. The Karnak were a vengeful species, and their humiliation would not go unpunished. They would regroup, rebuild, and return, stronger than ever. And when they did, humanity had to be ready. As Earth prepared for the inevitable second wave of the Karnak assault, Captain Michael Darrow and Dr. Emma Rook continued their efforts to unite the disparate factions of the galaxy under one banner. The Relon had been true to their word, providing humanity with advanced technology that could rival even the Karnaka's weaponry. However, the Relon's enigmatic motivations still lingered in the back of Rook's mind. They had not given humanity this power out of altruism, they had an agenda of their own, one that was still unclear. Meanwhile, the Zorii had shifted their stance. Initially, they had pushed for a peace treaty with the Karnak, seeking to avoid a galactic conflict that would threaten their lucrative trade routes. But now, after seeing the sheer determination of the humans, and the possibility of a united front against the Karnak, the Zorii began to reconsider. They offered not just trade, but resources and intelligence. They were playing both sides, but for the moment, they were on Earth's side. The true test of humanity's mettle, however, would not lie in their alliances. It would lie in how they adapted and evolved in the face of unimaginable odds. Captain Darrow and his crew aboard Endurance were pushing themselves to the limit, their latest missions taking them deep into Karnak-controlled space. Using Relon technology, they had developed a new type of stealth system, one that allowed their ships to infiltrate Karnak territory without detection. The goal was to undermine their enemies from within, disrupt their supply chains, cripple their war machines, and find a way to make them vulnerable. On the surface of Earth, the united front of human resistance continued to grow. The outer colonies, now fully integrated into the war effort, sent their best and brightest to Earth, offering everything from military expertise to scientific innovation. The people of Earth, driven by the same resolve that had seen them through the earliest days of their species rise into the stars, continued to rally together. Humanity was, for the first time, truly united in purpose. But beneath this unity, divisions remained. Some factions still held on to the hope that diplomacy could solve the crisis, that the Karnak might one day see the futility of their conquest and come to a peaceable resolution. Others, like Darrow, knew that this war would not end with talks. There could be no peace with the Karnak. They were a race of conquerors, and once they tasted blood, they would not rest until Earth was either crushed or bent to their will. The turning point came when the Karnak made their move. They struck with brutal efficiency, launching a coordinated assault on Earth's newly established fleet. This time, they had been careful. They had learned from their previous mistakes, bringing with them reinforcements from across the galaxy. They had forged new alliances of their own, and their fleet was stronger than before. The battle was unlike any humanity had ever faced. The Karnaka's fleet, now bolstered by additional forces, descended on Earth's defenses, overwhelming the human ships with their sheer numbers. But humanity was not so easily defeated. The fight was desperate, and Earth's defenders, led by Darrow and his seasoned crew, fought with everything they had. For hours, the battlefield raged, both sides suffering devastating losses. But it was in the heat of battle that humanity's ingenuity and resilience truly shone. As the Karnak advanced, Earth's fleets executed a daring counterattack. Using the newly developed Relon weaponry, the humans launched an unprecedented barrage of energy blasts that cut through the Karnak ships like a hot knife through butter. The shockwaves of the explosion sent ripples through the Karnak fleet, forcing them to stagger back, their ships in disarray. In the midst of the chaos, Endurance led a strike that pierced the heart of the Karnak command center. Darrow and his crew infiltrated the flagship once more, using the Relon technology to bypass the Karnaka's defenses. The flagship, weakened from previous battles and overwhelmed by humanity's relentless assault, fell. With it went the Karnaka's centralized control, and their fleet, now leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. It wasn't an outright victory, many lives were lost, and Earth's fleet had been decimated, but it was a critical blow. The Karnak had been sent reeling, their grand plans for galactic conquest thwarted for the time being. Humanity had not only survived, they had struck a decisive blow to one of the most feared empires in the galaxy. In the aftermath, Earth stood battered but resolute. The Karnak would not give up easily, but humanity had proven something vital: they would not be cowed. The galaxy had watched Earth rise from the ashes of its primitive past, and now, the galaxy was forced to reckon with a new power. Humanity had carved out its place among the stars, not just as survivors, but as a force to be reckoned with. But the war was far from over. The Karnak would return, and with them, new challenges would emerge, challenges that would test humanity's resolve like never before. Yet, one thing had become abundantly clear: humanity was no longer a primitive species. They had conquered the stars, and they would defend their place in the galaxy with everything they had. The future was uncertain, but humanity had learned one thing above all else: against all odds, they would never give up. And that would be their greatest strength in the battles to come.